government has admitted that it could have handled last week's unrest better. Malls, shopping centres and businesses were vandalised and looted. Jobs have been lost. The impact on our already struggling economy is dire, with our already high unemployment rate, particularly among the youth, and inequality, among other issues. So, does South Africa urgently need a new social compact? I'm keep on reading about this and hearing about it. Let's find out from social analyst Tessa Dooms what she thinks. Tessa, good afternoon. Welcome to the Midday View. I mean, I've been seeing, of course, a lot is being written, a lot is being said, and we're all analysing to say, okay, we sort of understand what could have gone wrong and what should change. Maybe we are not agreeing on that. In your view, would you agree that urgently we need a new social order in South Africa, and what could it look like?
Hi, Dan. I certainly do agree with the idea that we do need a new social compact. But we must be careful not to replace the word social compact with the kinds of things we've seen before that become mythologies of social cohesion. We remember the 1990s, this idea of the rainbow nation. We've seen in the 2000s the idea of a country that rallies behind different events and different moments. And what we do is we attach the idea of a social compact and a social contract and social cohesion to some kind of emotional sense of patriotism and unity. And what we need to do is be much more stark and much more realistic about what is broken about our society and the social contract we have today. The first thing that we need to tackle is the question about inequality in this country. And we have to reckon with the fact that we are, not only statistically in terms of our Gini coefficient, but in the ways that we live our lives, the most unequal country in the world. That is a status we have held for many, many years, only in competition with countries like Brazil or India from time to time. But we have to ask ourselves, what does that actually mean and what does it look like? Why does it manifest itself in our country in the way that it does? Our racial history, of course, has a role to play in that, and the ways in which we have fostered economic inequality on the basis of things like race and gender, but also just a fundamental understanding of what it means to be South African, what it means to be human, not even just South African, needs to be rethought and reimagined in our society so that we do not become comfortable with a society where masses, millions of people in the country can feel like something like water, sanitation, and access to basic goods is something that they don't even believe is something that they can afford, whereas a part of our population live in extreme opulence. That cannot be sustainable or something we're comfortable with any longer.
On that point, when you mentioned the word opulence, for example, what could the role of the middle class be? I'm asking this because in this you will need, from what you've said, the citizens have to be active in one way or another. You can't just create these utopic notions of rainbow nations, as you say. And I'm starting with the middle class because we've seen a growth of the black middle class, and currently the bulk of it has been exposed to high levels of indebtedness, as an example. What could their role be, for example? Let's just zoom in there a little bit for a short while.
I think when we talk about the middle class, we're not even sure who in this country we're talking about. Because of our extreme inequalities, what might be considered, the 1%ers in other countries, our 1% includes people who in other countries are earning very basic salaries, for whom these are basic salaries, and for us, we are 1%ers. That's the extremity of our inequality. But what I will say is that if you're a person that has resources and means, and you're not having to live in dire poverty, you're not having to live hand to mouth in the idea that you're worried about what you're going to eat and what your family will have to eat the next day or the day thereafter. You have to ask yourself, where am I benefiting that somebody else is losing? And am I okay with that? If you live in extreme wealth in this country, you have to ask yourself, what benefit can I derive from seeing other people as worth more than what they're getting right now, and being able to see why I can sacrifice more so that other people have basics. We have to start asking ourselves questions about what we're comfortable with in a society beyond ourselves. If we're just living in a society where we just want to be comfortable on our own, but we don't care about what other people in our country are facing, then we have turned off our social conscience, and we need to turn that right back up again so that we can start making ourselves uncomfortable every day rather than waiting for social unrest to make us uncomfortable.
Yeah, and finally, Tessa, as we conclude, I was just thinking there's something that in business is done, the way people talk about, especially in the world of marketing and advertising and also in imagining strategies, called co-creation. I mean, it seems to me, just watching what's been happening, gone are the days where you have a state that's in charge and tells us to do and does everything, and we look up to the state, we expect it to deliver certain things. There's a part where we need to find ways of involving individuals in the co-creation of those common spaces where we can, as human beings, as you said, find commonality. While we have this huge inequality, maybe that could be a first step of sorts, or one of the first steps.
Yeah, certainly. I think we need to recognize our privileges and recognize our prejudices. I think we need to look at the times in which we're interacting with people who have different living circumstances than we do. So even in domestic relationships between people who work in other people's homes, ask yourself, how equitable am I being in the relationship that I have with this person who works? Have I thought about the conditions in which they live? Have I thought about whether or not I could pay more or do more to help that person in their community? Are there people who I know who are community leaders, who could be community leaders in communities that do not have access to resources? And can I use the social capital that I have to create access to those kinds of resources? Let's get plugged in on purpose and think about our daily lives and our daily interactions and find ways to make the connects between the comforts of some of our lives and the clear discontent in the lives of millions of South Africans. It has to be something that we practically think about and not just think about as an imaginative mental experiment.
Yeah, I like it. Let's plug in with purpose in your daily life if you are able to. Thank you very much, Tessa, for some of your insights. Social analyst there, Tessa Dooms. Yeah, we need to start a new way. I mean, I think about it myself a lot at my age, and I'm thinking, what is it different that I can do going forward as a citizen of this country, having lived through what we've just lived through? Because the way it's going, unless we do something completely different, bold and new, this country is going to be hurtling from one protest to another. And we've got so much going for us. We have a beautiful land with so much resources, and each and every one of us can contribute to really build a nation we can all be proud of into the future for the sake of our children and our children's children.